All right, today I want to take a deep dive into what is going on in your ex's brain during a no contact rule. And typically when people come to me and they're talking about the no contact rule, they have two big fears. Number one, they think that the no contact rule is going to make them seem rude to their ex. And number two, they believe that a prolonged period of time away from their ex will cause their ex to lose feelings for them. So let's tackle that first one first. The first one is kind of easier to combat, and all you have to do is kind of look at our official definition for what the no contact rule in and of itself is. The no contact rule, it's a period of time where you cut off all conceivable communication with an ex after a breakup. The intent of this tactic should not be used to make your ex miss you, but instead should be used to rebuild your own life so that you can outgrow your ex. By doing this, the no contact rule can have the added benefit of making an ex miss you. So since when is it a bad thing to take time off for yourself so that you can outgrow and heal from the breakup? But that's not really the real reason most people struggle with the no contact rule. It's fear. They're worried that if they do it, not only is it going to be rude to their ex, but their ex is going to lose feelings for them. And in order to understand and combat that, we first must understand what the no contact rule does to your ex's brain. Now, for avid watchers of this YouTube channel, you'll probably have heard me talk about what breakups end up doing to the human body. So what I've done is I've compiled a really cool graphic for you to help you understand sort of the journey that the neuroscience of your body will go through during a breakup. So this is what the chemicals or the major chemicals in your body will look like at the beginning of a relationship. This is what they look like in the middle of a relationship. And then finally, this is what they look like during the end of a relationship. Pretty dramatic, right? All of the chemicals are down except one, cortisol. And cortisol is going to be kind of the crux of my argument. So, for your reference, cortisol is known as the stress hormone. So basically, it's released in response to stress. It will suppress your immune system. This is why oftentimes you can get sick really easily during very stressful situations. It'll increase glucose production and, weirdly enough, reduce your ability to urinate. But that's actually not the only thing that's going on. Remember, in that graphic, the cortisol was really high, but all the other chemicals were really low. And as a result of all those other chemicals being really low, this is why you get these really weird circumstances and feelings during a breakup. You know, lack of appetite, fatigue, mood swings, memory problems, inability to concentrate, lack of motivation, sleep problems, you name it. That is what's going on in your ex's brain and in your brain during a no contact rule and during a breakup in general. But I haven't really answered the fundamental question that we're really here to talk about, and that is how the no contact rule can relate to this very complicated brain chemistry. So you've heard of the 5 stages of grief, right? Well, it turns out that when it comes to breakups, we actually have 7 stages of grief. According to Suzanne Lakeman, there are 7 stages of grief that are typical during a breakup. You have the desperation stage, the denial stage, the bargaining stage, the relapse stage, the anger stage, the initial acceptance stage, and the redirected hope stage. What I really want to focus on, because this is what I see a lot of in the coaching practice and in the community, is actually stage 4, the relapse stage. And this one is of particular note and is quite interesting to me because oftentimes stage 4 can disguise itself as stage 5 and 6. So here's like how the typical relapse stage will work. You will feel awful, you'll want to get your ex back, so you'll try and you'll fail, which causes you to grow angry, and then you kind of decide it's time to move on. And then something happens that draws you back in, and you start the whole process over and over and over again. But when I was conducting research on these 7 stages of grief, I started wondering, at what point does cortisol level out during these stages? And does that correlate with an ex getting over you or you getting over an ex? And I found something actually even more interesting when I actually dug down to try to answer that question. I stumbled upon this article from Dr. Jamie Lee, who's a medical doctor and founder of a workplace wellness company called Health Quotient. And he was asked about cortisol levels. And here's what he had to say. According to Dr. Lee, it can take 3 to 4 hours for your cortisol levels to return to normal after a stress response, like an argument or a high-stakes meeting. But if your levels have been high for some time, it can take up to 6 months for them to bottom out. And this is particularly relevant to our discussion because of that relapse stage. So remember, that relapse stage is constantly about you trying to get over your ex, but failing to do so, and then starting over with trying to get them back again, and then failing and again. This creates or makes an environment where cortisol will be elevated for a long period of time. So at a bare minimum, for most of our clients and most of our clients' exes, cortisol is going to be elevated for 6 months. But how does this relate to the no contact rule? So I think it's important to remember that both parties are going to go through these 7 stages at their own pace after a breakup. But where I feel we're a little bit different and why I feel that we are so successful with our version of the no contact rule is because we actually believe in something called an active period of no contact. We're really trying to use our period of no contact to get you to outgrow your ex, to let go of them by the time your no contact rule is over. So what's interesting is we want you to be on stage 6 or 7 by the time you actually have to reach out when your no contact rule is over. And we do this by recommending a lot of tools or habit building approaches to your life and to stress and things that can be catalysts for stress. So our goal is to try to speed up your getting over your ex process by the time you reach out to them. But your ex is not going through usually that same trajectory. So by the time that you usually reach out, if you use our no contact rule the way we suggest you to do it, your ex can still be stuck in their own relapse stage, so that you have gotten to the point where you're willing to let go. And then when you reach out after the no contact rule is over, your ex is still stuck in that relapse stage, which actually means they're a lot more likely to respond to you. Not necessarily positively, but they will be more likely to respond to you, for which you can actually, if you want to get them back, be willing to negotiate that. And it all really comes back to cortisol. Usually we're finding that once your cortisol level bottoms out, you are at a place where you are willing to move on from your ex. So that's also one of the reasons that we don't recommend very, very long periods of the no contact rule. I've seen some people say that they've been in the no contact rule for 90 to 120 days straight. Usually what that ends up doing is allowing your ex to have time for their cortisol levels to drop and bottom out, and then they're ready to get to that initial acceptance and redirected hope stage. Now, this is not an exact science. These are best practices, but that is why we believe understanding what's going on in your ex's brain and neurochemistry is important for the no contact rule.